Hello, welcome to the Star Bros podcast.
Yes.
Good job, buddy. You can go now. Have a good day.
Get out.
Dismissed.
Get out. Well, I can't do it any better than that, so I'm not even going to try. But I guess I'll just say, hey, welcome, everybody. But if you were wondering who that voice on the other end was, that was my son, Jack Skywalker.
Little Jack Skywalker.
Little Jack Skywalker. Not so little anymore. I mean, you heard him. He's not a little kid anymore.
He's a beanstalk. He's grown really fast. But Little Jack Skywalker introduced episode 45 of the Star Bros podcast.
That's right. Let Qui-Gons be bygones.
Let Qui-Gons be bygones. And I think, wasn't it a couple weeks ago that Jack asked us when we're finally going to be done doing the podcast?
I think he did. I was like, why? Do you want me to be done? Like, what are you talking about? But he's also the kid that while I was in the car with him the other day, he goes, hey, Dad, can you put on your first episode again?
Really?
Yeah, he asked if I could put on. Literally, he requested the first one, which is when we talked about the Rise of Skywalker. I went, what is it about that one you really like, dude? Okay, sure, I'll put this one on. Why not?
And what was it that he liked?
I don't know. He just wanted to hear it.
Interesting.
You know what was happening? I picked him up from school. We were going to a dentist appointment, and I was listening to a podcast, a Red Wings podcast. That's the other love of my life. I love you too, sweetie. I
was going to say, you better start backpedaling.
Rewind, do over. Is there a pause button on this thing? No, so I was listening to that, and that's what made him say it. He was just like, hey, if you're listening to a different podcast, why don't we listen to yours, Dad?
It had nothing to do with the dentist?
Nothing to do with the dentist.
Of like, I enjoy the anesthetic effect of listening to the Star Bros. Just knock me out.
KMN.
which, by the way, if you are a new listener, and I'll introduce you very quickly. I'm here with my bro host, Ben Skywalker.
I'm here with my bro host, Jan Solo. Glad we got that out of the way. Let's move on.
and if you're brand new to the podcast, I think one of our hallmarks is that we try to keep it clean because, as you heard at the very beginning, we have friends with kids who listen to the show.
Yep.
And we try to just keep it pretty relaxing. Life is sort of stressful out there in the world. It's very stressful right now out there in the world.
It's stressful enough. And gosh, we just all need something to calm us down and help us feel a little bit better about life. Isn't that right?
I think so. And so this podcast is something that we like to do in a way to sort of offer a little bit of calm into the world.
Yes.
So we like to talk about all different types of... Why are you laughing?
I thought you were about to say, so you're welcome. Very modestly.
That too. You're very welcome. And so we love to talk about all types of Star Wars stuff, but we're not typically getting very worked up about it. We're just fans.
Yes, just fans here having a great conversation about some Star Wars. In fact, we are going to have a great conversation tonight. A lot of good stuff to talk about. Mm-hmm. And first of all, before we get into it all, we just need to say, you're welcome. Because we're going to talk about Qui-Gon. And we told you at the last episode we were going to talk about Qui-Gon. And we called Kathleen Kennedy and we're like, you know what would be really helpful for our podcast, Kathleen, is if you dropped a trailer for us that, had to do with this show I hear you're making called Obi-Wan, because it will tie really well into our episode. And she did.
So just to clarify, so we don't get sued by anybody, this is Kathleen with a C who lives in a trailer park. And so the whole thing about a Kenobi trailer dropping, that happened to be a coincidence.
Well,
just to clarify.
Then who did I pay for all that?
I don't know.
Oh, crap.
Kathleen with a C is made off with all your money.
Well, I'm going to go and knock on that trailer door and get it back. Do you remember where? I don't know.
But very, very...
Maybe she lives next to Randy.
Maybe she lives next to Randy, and that's a whole nother story.
A lot of inside jokes that we just threw out there. We hope you're not brand new and going, what the heck are you guys talking about?
But if you are, we're bringing you along for the ride.
Yes. Welcome to the craziness of this show. Yeah.
But the build up to this Kenobi trailer was significant, meaning I think people have pointed to specific events and said, it's going to happen today. Like, it's going to drop on Super Bowl Sunday. I bet you anything.
And it didn't.
Yeah. And so people have been waiting with wild anticipation for this. But we were also discussing about how they didn't necessarily need to drop it in some high profile place. They don't need to for example, they don't need to buy an Obi-Wan billboard in Times Square.
No.
People are going to show up and watch this.
Does anyone do that anymore?
Yeah.
Like, do you see in Times Square, like, a bunch of... I mean, I haven't been there forever, but I remember, like, that used to be the big thing, remember? It's like, you got a big advertisement there, and do they do that anymore, though? And I'm thinking about, like, the pandemic. Like, does it get the foot traffic? Or, I don't know. I haven't been in New York in forever.
So it's funny you say that. I haven't been there since before the pandemic, and I'm talking like I know what's in Times Square right now. But,
I know.
I think they still do. I think it's kind of back now. I don't know. But, like, the point is they didn't need to do that for Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Because people were going to show up regardless of the advertising that they did.
Because everybody knows who Obi-Wan is. It's a household name at this point.
Right.
And that's, right, it's what they showed in Moon Knight, and so people don't usually know who that is. That's the type of character that's good to show at a Super Bowl where you're going to get a lot of eyes and attention on it.
Yeah.
But they don't need to do that for Obi-Wan.
And then so since our last episode, the teaser trailer drops in the middle of the day on a weekday or something.
Yeah.
We all scramble and stop what we're doing.
Dude, my wife texted me while I was at work, and I was like, "Did you see the trailer yet?" I'm like, and then I texted you guys. I'm like, "Why is it that my wife is telling us about a Star Wars trailer dropping?" And you were like, "I didn't know it dropped."
I had no idea, and then I was really thankful. One of my coworkers sent me a chat because she knew that I would be excited about it, and she was excited about it.
Uh-huh.
And it was a sort of drop everything moment. And,
yeah.
Then we got into it. By the way, are we transitioning into our first segment?
I think we are. We pretty much already got there. So let's get there now. What is that one called? Let me think about it. News from across the galaxy. I'm more laughing at like the fact that you delayed it. I was like, "Are you going to do it?" And then you did it. Just waiting for a while.
Yeah.
I think that was a long drop.
That was like all the way down the well.
That was like a 50-foot drop right there. That was painful.
What does that have to do with the news anyway?
I don't know. Where did you even come up with this?
I just thought it sounded exciting.
I'm excited by it. I'm excited to hear it every time.
Thank you.
Okay. One small piece of news we need to get out of the way, and then we're going to pretty much gush about the Obi-Wan trailer. And that will lead right into our topic of Qui-Gon.
Yes.
What's that one piece of news before we go into the trailer?
Well, we so a little bit of inside baseball, behind the scenes Star Bros magic for you.
Yeah.
Ben and I sometimes compare our notes about the different news items that we found so that we can do like a little bit of a back and forth of like, hey, what did you find this week? What did you find this week? We found the same thing.
The exact same thing.
The exact same thing.
And if we would have recorded on Wednesday night like we normally do,
yeah,
we wouldn't have seen it.
We wouldn't have.
Because it dropped like right now.
Yep.
And what is it? Coming to you, breaking news on the... No.
Christopher Lloyd, who plays Doc Brown.
Hold your phones, guys. Like, just sit down. Are you sitting down for a second? Good. Say it again.
Christopher Lloyd, who plays...
You mean that Back to the Future crazy guy?
Yep, who plays the guy who invents the DeLorean time machine in Back to the Future.
Angels in the Outfield.
I guess.
Clue.
I guess
that
so.
Guy. He's kind of a not so good guy in Clue, by the way.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go watch that.
But a word that I won't say because maybe Heather's child is listening.
Okay, that's a good call. And other people's children.
And other people's children. My children, apparently.
Yes. But he's going to make a cameo of some kind in Mandalorian Season 3, which is filming now. Filming now in Southern California.
Yep.
And we don't know anything else about his character except for they did say it's more of a cameo than him being a main character in the series.
How amazing would it have been if he just showed up in the DeLorean?
Like a full on like in-universe crossover?
Yeah, exactly. Like he just went back, I guess, to the past. It would be like Blast from the Past more, which is not the same franchise.
It would be. He would go a long, long time ago.
In a galaxy far, far away, in a DeLorean.
The far away part, I think, is the hard part. You know the DeLorean can do the time part.
Right.
And so it would skip across the galaxy, and he would pull up in, who knows, the middle of a gun battle or something. And
on Tatooine?
Maybe.
Yeah? Maybe Coruscant?
and go, "Great Scott!"
and instantly get shot dead by a bunch of stormtroopers.
Yep, and then the Jawas pick apart the DeLorean.
The DeLorean! And turn it into scrap. Wow, good thing we are not writers for this new show. We're not Favreau.
I feel like Favreau, who clearly listens to this podcast, is probably on set listening to this, ripping up his script going,
Start over!
I've
got a new idea, guys.
I got an idea.
The bros said so.
Yeah.
We should just call an episode that. The bros said so.
The bros said so. I love that.
Okay. We're having fun here, obviously, because we have no idea what Christopher Lloyd is going to do in any kind of Star Wars
It could just
movie.
be a voice. It could just be a voice.
Maybe he's a droid. That's a good point. But if he's not there, if I don't see his face, that will be a little bit disappointing because he's just, more importantly, it's not even the face, it's the hair.
It's the hair.
Keep the hair.
Yeah.
You got to do something with that, Einstein look of his in Star
Wars.
Wars.
I think of, though, whenever I see somebody is making a cameo in Star Wars, I think about the fact that their Comic-Con booth cred goes up.
Mm.
When you see celebrities and they have the banner behind them and they have their name splashed across it, a big picture so you can see from far away, oh, there's so and so's booth. And then sometimes they have a couple in character pictures. I could see them. I could see Christopher Lloyd's booth getting moved closer to the front. He's Back to the Future and The Mandalorian, and he was in Clue, and he was in, what's that other movie you mentioned? Dances with Wolves?
Wasn't Angels in the Outfield? Wasn't that?
Mighty Ducks?
No, not Mighty Ducks.
Red Dawn?
No.
Rocky 7. Gremlins.
What's it? Fast and the Furious 12.
Yes. That's what he's going to be in next. Although I saw that they're going to stop making those because gas is too expensive.
Burn and rubber.
Laugh, but then cry.
That's so true. Let's move on to another topic.
Yeah, let's
that was fun to milk. We had fun with that enough.
We should dig into the actual news.
Let's dig into the one piece of news, which turned into a lot of other pieces of news, which we will get to. But we got ourselves a trailer for Obi-Wan, and we're so excited. I mean, I was excited. I watched this thing and I just geeked.
Yeah.
There he is. Ewan McGregor is back. And it took him about, 30 seconds for them to confirm something we had already said was going to happen.
What was that?
Young Luke.
Oh, yeah.
We said that.
Yeah.
We talked about it. We were like, young Luke, he's coming, right? You cannot do this episode without him. And there they proved, he's there, he's watching over them, which was really cool to see. So, yeah, we got the first confirmation, young Luke. That was the moment where I just went, this is going to be special.
But
I know it.
The one of the things that really jumped out at me, and I don't know if you got this vibe too, is it's young Luke acting like young Anakin.
Yeah.
Sort of doing the pod racing thing and kind of sitting similarly to the way Anakin sat when he was little.
I didn't get Anakin flashbacks, but I definitely got he had visions of shooting womp rats and flying an X-wing or whatever. He obviously wanted to get off that rock and be more than just a moisture farmer.
Yep.
I got that vibe really strong in just a split second of him looking through those binoculars at him, which was really cool.
The binoculars were pretty cool.
The binoculars were cool. Just seeing the homestead again. Maybe we'll get some, Fixer will be in this. Who knows what we're going to get. It'll be really cool and special. Just knowing that he's going to be there now, your mind starts running wild.
And do you think, did they do anything to Ewan in terms of making him look like the appropriate age? I don't want to say just making him look older. He looks it looks perfect, I think.
Yeah.
But I think that just might be him. I think just enough time has passed.
He's aged well.
Yeah. Oh
It's
yeah.
Ewan McGregor we're talking about.
Yeah, he's a movie star.
You saw him in that Expedia commercial. That's what you did get. When you saw the Expedia commercial during the Super Bowl and you're like, it's Ewan McGregor. Are we going to see him in the...
I forgot about that. What a fake out.
Yeah, that was. The only reason I think that Expedia commercial is because they're showing it like crazy on hockey games right now. So, it was a good commercial. But yeah, I was like, is this a segue into the trailer? But anyway, we've already gone there. He did look a little bit older. He looked like a good middle between Alec Guinness and his former self, his younger self. So I felt like it was pretty genuine of what I expect him to look like now.
I thought so too, but so this takes place 10 years after Revenge of the Sith.
10 years after, and I guess 9 years before New Hope.
Right. So this is the new bridge. This is the new connective tissue between the prequels and the original trilogy. So it's 10-ish movie years, but in reality, what is it since Revenge of the Sith? 16, 17 years? Longer.
For which movie?
From today in 2022 to when Revenge of the Sith came out.
Oh, gosh. Revenge of the Sith came out in 2005, so you do the math. Actually, let's get Jack back in here. He can do the math.
He can do it really quickly. So actually, more actual
17?
calendar time has passed in real life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which is interesting.
But then again, remember, Tatooine ages you a little bit differently.
They've got that extra sun.
Yes. It's got that extra sun, but have you seen, 19 years on Tatooine, and this is what it does to you, and it shows Owen Lars.
Yes.
And then it shows Obi-Wan, and it shows how much they age.
I think it's that extra sun.
It's that extra
takes
sun.
a toll.
Yeah. I like that theory. No, but I wanted to ask you about the first lines that we get from Obi-Wan in this trailer. He says, "The fight is done. We lost."
Yeah.
Is there anything that we can take from that in terms of where this series could go? Where is his head? It's been 10 years. Where is he mentally? I would imagine not a good place.
Mm.
Because of how long he's been in isolation. He might be at the point where Owen Lars already thinks he's a crazy old hermit, or is starting to think of that, and not letting him, oversee Luke the way that he was supposed to. I'm wondering if he's in a good place.
I don't think so. I think that he was playing the role of the crazy old hermit in order to keep an eye on Luke, and I think he's probably actually become the crazy old hermit.
Yeah.
It's just been too much time on his own. There's a little snippet of him kind of riding along on what looks like the bus or something on Tatooine, and he just kind of looks defeated and run down and wiped out and just kind of uninspired, unenergetic. And I think the years have just kind of beaten him down.
I like that. It's like he's accepted that they've lost, and he's not trying to give up, obviously. And one of the things I love when I'm skipping to the end now is where the words "Hope Survives" flash across the screen, and you see Obi-Wan again. You don't see him do much in this. This trailer is not about Obi-Wan. This trailer is about what we'll get to in a second and setting the plot up. But the moments that you see Obi-Wan, he's very calm, collected, quiet, just going about his business type thing, not doing much.
He's just watching. He's not participating in life as much.
He's riding. He's riding what looks like a camel. I don't know what it is. I didn't get a close up look. You mentioned the conveyor belt thing that he's on with all the people. He's not doing much. But the fact that it flashes and says "Hope survives," that phrase carries something now. And I guess when I look at Obi-Wan, I think it's going to be, how does he allow the hope to survive in himself after everything that he's gone through? Because he's at the beginning saying he's accepted that we've lost. So this is going to be a bit of a battle, I think, for him to let the hope survive in himself.
Yeah. Pardon me. I think that there's just this little shred that's left there, and maybe it's in the form of Luke. Maybe it's him kind of drawing strength from Luke and keeping an eye on him, and maybe that's all he's got.
It's going to keep him going. It's going to be his fuel.
Maybe that's enough to keep him going. But I thought that was a nice counterpoint, because in the beginning it's gosh, this feels hopeless.
Yeah.
But then at the end there we get that little dose of no, there's something here that's going to be maybe a little bit more uplifting than that. So, I loved it. I thought it was really well done. I thought it was a little bit dark, a little bit dreary, but it sort of matches the vibe of what you would expect.
Yeah, so I totally agree with you. I mentioned the first thing that got me really geeking out. The second thing followed very shortly after that.
What's that?
The music. the music of this trailer and all the callbacks to all the anthems and all the great themes that we've heard throughout Star Wars, and it has to start with, I mean, one of the best, Duel of the Fates.
One of the
With
best.
a slightly different rendition is what it felt like. So
A little bit different, but didn't expect to hear any version of it.
no, me neither. I mean, part of me started going, why? Why, first of all? Is there some Darth Maul tie-in? Or I don't know. Like, that's the first thought I had. But I think part of it, too, was to introduce the villains. Like, that's kind of like a bit of a, villainous theme. And that's what it does. It introduced the Inquisitors.
I think the theme is the conflict of the hero meets the villain head on, and there's no running away from it. Like, they're going to clash head on.
Yeah.
So that to me, I thought that was kind of like really nicely woven in. But I was really intrigued in the little bits and pieces that they gave you about the villains, and the sense that so the vibe that I'm getting is the Inquisitors are these Jedi hunters who are on Tatooine, who are poking around on Tatooine and looking for something. Maybe they don't know what exactly, or maybe they do. Maybe they have a really clear picture of what it is that they're hunting. But they're there. And
Yep.
there are also a couple of shots of like some cool neon lights and stuff. And some people are saying like, all right, maybe there's also part of this that's in the underworld on Coruscant too, which could be really
Is that where
interesting.
that was? Okay.
It could be. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I liked the introduction of like what looked like what the Inquisitor headquarters were.
Yeah, so a little bit of background for those who might not know what it is that they just saw, because the Inquisitors were, well, the Grand Inquisitor, who is the main villain that we're introduced to, was first shown to us in Rebels, and there it's really where we start diving into who these Inquisitors are. So now, do you need to go see Rebels before you see this? No. They will do an exposition. They will show you, they will tell you who these characters are, just in case you didn't see Rebels or anything else. Don't worry. But I would say, if you haven't seen it, it's worth it. It's great stuff. But the Grand Inquisitor is a character. Essentially, all the Inquisitors are former Jedi that Darth Vader was able to turn to the dark side. And their job is to hunt former Jedi across the galaxy. And he says it's really interesting, the dialogue that the Grand Inquisitor has here at the beginning. So what we saw was Fortress Inquisitorius, which was like this big underwater like fortress, I guess.
What's it called?
Fortress Inquisitorius. Now you're making me question life right now. Stop it. Someone's like Googling me like, that's not right. I hope not. Is that how people talk when they correct you?
Yes.
Okay.
That's how I talk when I send emails when I'm like,
that's not right. Now every time I get an email from you, that's all the voice I'm going to hear in the back of my head.
Fortresius Inquisitorius?
Inquisitorius. Fortress Inquisitorius. Stop making me question life, man. Yeah, but okay, let me get to the lines that he says now. So I love the first line. He's like, the key to hunting Jedi is patience. Okay, so first of all, that's a really cool line.
Yep.
Like, he's ruthless. He's got patience, right? There's a line from a Disney movie that says something similar. Anyway, but this is going to be all about hunting Jedi and hunting Obi-Wan specifically. And then he says, Jedi cannot help what they are. Their compassion leaves a trail. So has Obi-Wan done some things and being in solitude that eventually, like, they're trying to sniff out? So yeah, that's where I think this is going. Is it's just going to be them hunting Jedi. I mean, we saw a little bit of that in Fallen Order, the video game, which was fantastic. That's exactly what happens there too. So it's just more about them hunting Obi-Wan now.
And what is it that they do to sort of set the trap? It's usually something like they force them to act on their compassion.
Exactly.
And so it makes you wonder what type of awful stuff they're going to get up to on Tatooine.
Yep.
That will smoke Obi-Wan out of his hiding in his hut somewhere across the Dead Sea.
Yeah, exactly. So Fallen Order, one of the first areas that you play in, the Inquisitors show up to where Cal Kestis is, and they're about to kill a bunch of innocent people to try to smoke out the Jedi, because they wouldn't allow that, right? And that's exactly what happens. And they're called brothers and sisters, and they're given numbers. So that was, I think, the second sister that was in that in the video game with him. But all those different Inquisitors he saw were like, I think, the fifth brother or third sister and things like that. So those are who all the other Inquisitors are. But then the Grand Inquisitor is like the leader of them all. Let's talk about that for a second. There was a lot of talk on the Twitters, and everyone up into Twitter. Everyone went all to Twitter with the look of the Grand Inquisitor.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
I didn't know where you were going to go with that. And then as soon as you said it, I was like, oh, of course.
That thing. Yeah. So they compared it to the animation. And they were like, well, that's not what he looks like. Some compared it to what we get in introduction to this species in Revenge of the Sith. And they're like, well, he doesn't look like that either. And I don't know. I just was like, come on, people. Can we just all get along and enjoy something for a change?
I know. I just want to say, like, that's what he looks like in this show.
Well, there were all those great memes people put together of, like, if they looked in real life, what they looked like in animation, and then you saw them was with Dooku, and his face is, like, stretched out.
Yes, right. Because the cartoon kind of, like, cartoony, makes things very cartoony and, like, exaggerated and caricatures. Like, they're not going to make that exactly in practical effects.
I think the term is cartoonicates.
Cartoonicate?
No, I don't know.
That's a great word.
It's a great word, though. I'm going to use it.
That sounds like an Excel function.
Concatenate. That's the Excel function.
Cartoonicate this column of information, and then they just turn into Count Dooku faces from Clone Wars. Cartoonicate.
Cartoonicate. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just making up words left and right, gentlemen.
Gentlemen.
Go look this up in the Webster's Dictionary. It'll be there in about 10 years.
Yep.
Cartoonicate.
But yeah, people were upset about that for whatever reason, because people like to get upset about this stuff. People proposed solutions. People were like, no, look, I fixed it. And then they photoshopped something in that looked absolutely ridiculous.
And we were like, no, you didn't. You made it worse.
You've made it worse, and you've wasted a day of your life sitting in front of the computer making it worse. So yes, people were upset about that. But hey, wouldn't be our fandom if people did not come out right at the teaser trailer complaining about something.
Oh yeah, they always do. It's like every episode that dropped of The Mandalorian or of Obi-Wan, Boba Fett. Every one they found something, and at some point you just gotta turn the Twitters off.
And I remember we had a group chat going with our bro host Chris Ryans at Chris Ryans on Twitter, and I said something to the effect of, I think it was during The Mandalorian, maybe when the jeans guy scandal happened.
Oh yeah.
And I said something to the effect of, what, are people just watching this frame by frame? And he was like, yes.
Yes, they are, Jan.
That's what these people do. That's what we do.
He's like, that's what I do. Chris is like, that's what I do. What do you do?
Right. I have to own that for myself. Like, yes, that's what we in this fandom do.
Yes.
But I think something that's a little bit different about us is, like, usually we're like, okay, we're going to roll with this.
I'm just going to enjoy it and take it for what it's worth. And then later on, like, if I want to pick it apart, maybe I'll pick something, but I'm probably still going to enjoy it.
Probably still going to enjoy it. Yeah. And so here's what I'm wondering about the Kenobi version of the Star Wars universe. What kind of, like, totally new things are they going to do? Because one of the criticisms that Star Wars fans always have is, that doesn't look like Star Wars. And then somebody does something new, and they go, but that's not Star Wars, you know? But I think they're probably going to do something that's totally new to us.
Yeah, probably.
And I wonder what that thing is going to be.
I mean, they might call up again the lightsaber of the Grand Inquisitor, which spins in a way that doesn't really compute. Like, it still doesn't for me. I think people just went, okay, that works. I mean, it looks cool.
Yeah.
But like in Rebels, like at one point, some of the Inquisitors were
how would you describe it?
What?
How would you describe it?
Well, I just said it. Like, they were flying with their lightsabers.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Let's just wait and see what happens.
Okay.
Moving on.
Yeah.
All right, so this is my segue question to more to the story.
Oh yeah.
The big question is, will we get Qui-Gon?
Mm-hmm.
In what form will we get Qui-Gon?
Mm-hmm.
For reasons we might talk about later, he should not come back as a Force ghost. We'll get into that later. But will he come back in some way, shape, or form? Some people were saying, well, Liam Neeson isn't really on good terms with Disney right now, so probably not. I don't know. I think they can put stuff behind them for a good story sometimes, so who knows? Maybe they do something with getting his voice in there. What do you think?
I think in some way, because I feel like Qui-Gon is such a big part of who Obi-Wan is.
Yes.
And so to kind of cut him out or ignore him, and look, it doesn't have to be Liam Neeson walks on set and is in 4 episodes or something. It could be
I think if you can overdo it. You can really overdo it if he's in a lot of episodes. So they probably won't.
I don't think it'll be a lot. I think it'll be lighter touch, but I think he's going to show up in some way. Whether it is in the form of Obi-Wan telling stories about Qui-Gon, or kind of like calling upon lessons, like what would Qui-Gon do in this situation? How should I handle this? Or maybe some type of flashbacky thing, or like his voice or something. But he's going to show up in some way. What do you think?
I think we got to get a voiceover at some point, and it's going to be short, it's going to be small, and it's going to be purposeful. But like one of the things that we got teased to us at the end of Revenge of the Sith was how Force Ghost basically came to be, why we didn't see him all this time, and then let's explain real quick how it happened, how Obi-Wan was able to become a Force Ghost, and it was because of Qui-Gon.
Yeah,
Qui-Gon had made his way back through the Force. So we got to get an explanation, and I think it'd be great to see. So it would be a miss if they couldn't do it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But then again, if there was some explanation that said, well, he learned that at year 5, okay, I might be able to accept that.
Yeah.
Then give me the prequel to the Obi-Wan series later on. But because I would love to see that.
Yeah.
But I will accept whatever happens, but I hope that there is. And if he's not, I'm fine with it too.
Yeah.
It won't ruin it for me or anything.
Yeah.
But anyway, how's that for a segue?
That's a good segue. Should we tell the folks what this segment of the show is called?
That's your job on this one.
Oh. More to the story.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, mine's not as exciting. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay, Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
Let's talk about probably one of the best characters in Star Wars. Now, you'll remember...
Well, let me stop you right there.
Already?
Yes.
You're not even give me a second to... Okay, fine. Go ahead.
Because you said something that I think is kind of understated and is really true. Like, this is a beloved character.
Yes.
If like what you see a lot of stuff in terms of like cosplay and whatever, you don't see a lot of people doing Qui-Gon. And
Liam Neeson's a very unique look that not many people can pull off.
And he's super tall and all that stuff, and so like it's harder to do. But you ask people about which Jedis they really like and what characters they really adore, and if they stop and they think about it, a lot of people say Qui-Gon. A lot of people really, really love this character.
And there's a lot of reasons why, and we should definitely get into why. But I think people grew a deeper
let me stop you
respect
right there.
What's that?
Let me stop you right there.
You're doing it right before I get to my next thing every time. Man.
I don't have anything to say.
I know, you're just doing this to mess with me now. I know you. This is every episode.
Yeah.
Those who have been listening from the beginning know you.
Carry on.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay.
You're welcome.
You're just making me have a lot of fun. I was going to say, Dave Filoni. Have you heard of him? You know the guy?
I've heard of him.
Yeah,
he's from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Do you remember, like, whenever that Mandalorian season 1 behind the scene footage where they did the round table and he had this big 10-minute spiel about like the importance of Qui-Gon?
Yeah.
I mean, that brought it to a whole nother level.
That's a good point.
Right. And I think we've talked about that speech, so we don't need to go through that again. But, I mean, he painted why he was such a critical character. One of the reasons for me, though, that I love him so much is it's not just because he's wise. It's because I feel like he embodies what the Jedi were always meant to be. And
Also,
he was just born at the wrong time. And then in a way, he was, we'll talk about that, like he was, I think, the savior in the end of the entire Skywalker saga.
Yeah.
If you think about it. What I mean is, he really embodies what they are. He's a servant. He sees them as a servant. He doesn't get involved with the politics. By that point, the politics have overrun the Jedi. And they thought so politically. The Grand Council, it was viewed as like, you do everything to build towards that. And they talk about, I'll get to this now. Like, I think there are 3 critical moments in his life. One of them was rejecting the spot to be on the Order. Like, doing that was unheard of. Why would you do that? That's the pinnacle of achievement. In America, we're so big on careers. Like, why would you ever say no to career development? Right? And he says, no, I'd rather be the servant. I'd rather focus all my energy on learning the secrets of the Force and focusing on being a servant. So he says no to joining the council and continues to explore the living Force. And if he doesn't do that, we don't get Force Ghosts. And there's a lot that doesn't happen if we don't get Force Ghosts too. Luke never becomes a Jedi. How does he get trained? How does he eventually get told to go to Dagobah? He doesn't. Like, there's so much that because of his dedication to the living Force and learning about it that we get because of Qui-Gon. I'll stop for a second.
That's a great point. And isn't it crazy how the people who reject leadership, formal leadership, or the expectations, they reject the expectations and all the baggage that goes with it because it takes them away from being a servant.
Are you going to bring up Simon Sinek?
No.
Oh, okay. Do you know what I'm getting at?
I don't think so.
Oh, isn't that one of Simon Sinek's things, like from way back when he said...
He has a Qui-Gon video?
No. He's a motivational speaker, right? Mm-hmm. And he says something about how there are a lot of true leaders who never end up in like leadership positions.
Oh, yeah.
That company, like his point being, like, he knows so many people who are really leaders that he would follow any day of the week that are not in a position of power.
Yeah.
His point is, like, leadership is not something that you achieve.
Yeah. And I think Qui-Gon's a really good example of that because so he rejects that in the plot line of the movie, but look at how revered he is by the fan base of people who kind of hold him up as like, this is the Jedi. This he's the keystone Jedi that holds like the whole bridge together from the beginning of the story to the end of the story. And so much of it like is just through his actions, his deeds, and the way that he treats others that like get that followership going.
That's exactly right. I mean, one of the things that I did in preparation was I thought about his service. We only get him. This is the other thing. We get him for one movie, and he's gone by the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's had such an indelible impact on the franchise, on the storyline of Star Wars, that one movie cemented him as, again, like I said, the savior of it all in the end. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of really critical things wouldn't have happened if he didn't do all the things we saw him do in Phantom Menace.
Yeah,
he's the glue that holds it all together.
Truly.
So I thought about that in preparation. What were some of the impacts that he had on the characters? And there's some of the obvious ones. Anakin, for example, he's the one who believes in him to win the race. He frees him. He teaches him. And I mean, we don't get to see like the impact that Qui-Gon's death really has on Anakin. So I guess for my question for you, like, how do you think Anakin coped with that?
That's a really good question. It's got to be quite the blow. And maybe this is where I'll work in something that I was reading about with George Lucas that I think is one of the principles of George Lucas's approach to storytelling in general that I think applies here nicely. And that is, we've discussed before how George Lucas has said that there's just something about a father and a father in conflict and crisis that needs to be pulled out of that or saved from it some way by the son or by the kids. And I think something that happens here is, to me, I don't know about you, I always thought of Qui-Gon as like the more parental and I guess paternal of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Like he has that stature, but he also has like that warmth and that care that sometimes you don't see. Like, you know, we meet Yoda and he's kind of hitting Luke over the head with his cane and things like that. But from the very beginning, there's a real likability and a real respect for Qui-Gon. And to me, like his Padawans, his relationships with all those around him, I see it almost as like a father-son type of relationship.
Well, isn't that what Filoni said? He said he was kind of the father figure for Anakin. He didn't have a father.
He's the father figure for Anakin, and so it's got to just be in some way absolutely crushing for him to lose him, even though they haven't known each other all that long.
No, they were kind of like, it was kind of born out of conflict too.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, they had their time on Tatooine, which was honestly probably the most laid back time that they ever had together. Because as soon as Anakin went with him back to Coruscant, like they're off to Naboo and, you know, engaging in war basically, in a conflict. So yeah, I mean, he's just he's got to be. It must have been difficult for him, but he doesn't really show it, and I think that's because he didn't know him as long. But it is a really big blow to him.
He doesn't really show it, and which is interesting because he seems like a character who's kind of boiling over with emotions from the very beginning. But yeah, I think one of the things that I really like about Qui-Gon is that he doesn't take pride in himself or pride in his own actions or pride in his stature. Like, he really takes pride in like his Padawans and the people around him.
Mm-hmm.
And he seems to really take pride in Anakin and kind of finding him and bringing him out of the situation that he's in. And that's got to feel really good for a kid who is basically living in Watto's junk shop and not having the best life that he can possibly have.
No. Yeah, that's exactly right. I guess with Anakin, the one other thing I thought about was, to me, I think it's special that when Qui-Gon meets his demise, his final words are, "Train the boy," like train him. That was the last thing that he thought about. It was so important that while he's sitting there with Obi-Wan, think of all the adventures that we're going to be able to read about some of them soon when those comics start coming out.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Right? Think about just all of the things that he could have said to Obi-Wan, like, you're a great Jedi, you like focus on Obi-Wan. He didn't do that. Like, you think about, like, if you're in movies when you see like someone's loved one about to pass away, like they're just talking about how much they love them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It kind of makes sense. In that moment, his mission to serve as the boy's trainer, his belief that he is the chosen one, was all that he could think about. It was more important than anything else he could have said. And he decided at that moment he needed to impart that wisdom on Obi-Wan before he passed. That was another of his best moments. Like, just his dedication so much to what he believed in terms of the idea of the chosen one and being that consummate Jedi. Like, he wasn't going to let that falter just because he was on his deathbed.
And that was also his moment too, I think, of that's his way, I think, of telling Obi-Wan he loves him and telling him, you're ready. And you know what, you're ready. You're so ready, it's not about you anymore. It's now about doing what I've been doing with you. And you have to go and sort of give selflessly and train this kid up.
Yeah.
And so like that's sort of like a little, I think, a pat on the head to him to say, all right, it's your time now.
Yeah.
But your time isn't about you.
Your time, right, exactly. And Obi-Wan respects that. I mean, immediately after that, he goes back and takes earlier in the movie, he's saying, like, I think you should listen to the council. You should listen to the council. He's all about order and he's all about following the rules. And then he goes back right after his death and is like, no, you need to listen to Qui-Gon here.
Mm-hmm.
He told me to do this, and that was his dying wish. I'm going to see that fulfilled. And here's the other thing. By the end of Obi-Wan's life, he's become Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
And he's become exactly... I think we talked about this in the Obi-Wan episode. He's become the best parts about who he is as Obi-Wan, but also the best parts about Qui-Gon.
Mm-hmm.
All because of this impression that he made on him.
Yeah. Hey, maybe we can go back and talk a little bit about Qui-Gon's origin story.
Oh yeah, we kind of skipped past that.
Yeah, which is okay, and it's something that's not on the big screen. It's something that kind of gets fleshed out in the novels and in the comic books.
Are these novels Are they canon or what are they?
I don't. That's a good question. I don't know. I know some of the comics that are referenced or that are that make up bits and pieces of the story are now considered legends in some parts are canon. Mm-hmm. And I saw like one line from Lucasfilm that said something to the effect of the parts that are clearly there for comedic effect are considered legends, and the rest of it. And it's like, well, that's subjective.
If they make you laugh.
If it's funny, it ain't the real thing, I think is what they're trying to say. But
we take Star Wars seriously.
Yes.
But at the same time, all of the prequel or all of the sequel trilogy is just full of jokes.
Right.
It's like chock full of humor.
Yeah.
Which is I'm fine with. I'm fine with a little humor.
I'm fine with it too. But I'll start with this, and I don't think that this is... do you know the origin of the name Qui-Gon Jinn? I don't. I don't know if there is a story there that we have access to. But,
no, I don't know.
So years ago, when I was in college, I took a class that was kind of like a Middle Eastern studies class, and one of the things that we talked about...
You went to college?
Was that?
You went to college?
I did.
Wow.
I went to HVAC school, and...
I'm only laughing because I know you're making this up.
Got my certificate. This is what part is made up.
Wait, what?
Huh?
Okay.
So, believe it or not, I'm an educated adult. And
I'm just messing. Keep going.
So, long story short, I took a class, and one of the subjects of one of the classes was the Jinn, Jinn.
Okay.
Which is the basis for what we know as genies from the Middle East, which are basically, if you think about it, entities who are tremendously powerful, but they don't grant their own wishes. They grant the wishes of others. They help other people live their best lives.
So Qui-Gon Jinn's a genie?
He's sort of a genie. Yeah. It's not about him.
He serves?
It's service to others, extraordinary service to others, helping people be extraordinary in their own way, but you're just sort of in the background.
Yeah, he saves your life 3 times and then he leaves?
And then he leaves. And then he says, you can't use one of your wishes to ask for more wishes, because that's cheating.
Yeah. Jar Jar's indebted to him then.
Yep. Anyway, origin story. As per a series of books put out by Scholastic Press called Jedi Apprentice and Star Wars Tales issues 1 through 20. Here's what we know about Qui-Gon's past.
Sit back, kids. We are about to be told the story of Qui-Gon Jinn.
Buckle up. Bring me my whittling knife. All right. So within 6 months after he was born, he was found to be Force sensitive. We think, although it's not clear, we think he was actually born on Coruscant.
Yeah, that's not clear. It says it's his home world.
Yeah.
In the Star Wars book, it says that too.
So we think he was born there, but it seems to be where kind of his story starts.
Which is interesting that he didn't turn political if that's where he was born.
Right.
Maybe he was disenchanted by what he saw.
It could be. He was Dooku's apprentice.
Yes.
That we know.
That has not changed. That's canonized.
Yes. But here's a couple interesting things that come up throughout his apprenticeship. But actually, I'm going to jump right to he is a Jedi Knight, and he is on his last kind of, mission with Dooku, which actually takes 2 years. It's on a 2-year-long mission with Dooku. And then they get done, and they come back, and they get back to Coruscant, and they're going to the temple. And what does Qui-Gon do? But everybody who he sees, who he's not seen in 2 years, he embraces and hugs them. And Dooku admonishes him, because Dooku thinks that sincere friendships don't really exist. And if anything, they're just sort of impediments to you achieving your
potential.
Your potential
as a Jedi, or as a Force user, as he probably thought of it more.
Yeah,
because he eventually just mixed the two together.
Yep. And so I thought that was like an interesting contrast, and I think that's at the core of who Qui-Gon is that care and respect for other people.
Yeah.
And Some could argue that that's attachment, and maybe that's not a good thing. But anyway, so he becomes a master, and he takes a Padawan, and his second Padawan is somebody named Xanatos. And Xanatos comes from actually a very well-to-do family. He's from a planet where his father is actually the corrupt, sinister monarch on this planet. And they have to go and do a mission there. And so Master Qui-Gon and his Padawan Xanatos go back to this planet. And in the course of this conflict, Qui-Gon actually kills his father.
What?
To save some other people or whatever it might be, he kills his Padawan's father.
What?
Yes.
Is this canon?
Don't know. Somebody send us an email. And Xanatos, that triggers something, and it's sort of like the House of Cards falls apart, and Xanatos actually falls to the dark side.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I would too.
And Qui-Gon says to himself, oh my gosh, I'm never going to take a Padawan again. I can't risk this. I just, like, he feels responsible. He's beating himself up and he can't believe it. There's some other interesting stuff that comes along the way there. They actually meet Darth Plagueis.
Really?
He doesn't know it's Darth Plagueis. And so, like, I need to go back and read a little bit more about that.
Darth Plagueis the Wise.
The Wise, yeah. So, anyway, he says, I'm not going to do this anymore. This is not my destiny. I should not have a Padawan. I can't believe, he's invested all this time in Xanatos, and he becomes a Sith. But Yoda takes him aside and says, I want you to see this kid. I think that you two would be a really good match. And Qui-Gon says, forget it. I'm not interested. And Yoda says, go watch this tournament at the temple where you can see some of the younglings kind of duking it out. And he's going to be there and just see if you're impressed. This is the same tournament that apparently Qui-Gon had easily won many years before. And Obi-Wan wins this time around. And Qui-Gon watches, and you know what he says? He says, that kid's got a real violent streak. He's not in control of his emotions. He seems dangerous, and he played pretty rough with his friends. I don't think he can cut it. I don't want to train him. So he leaves. And so he gets sent on a solo mission, and he goes to this planet, and who is there except Obi-Wan? And you know what Obi-Wan's doing there? Remember when we were talking about the Jedi manual? There was the different, like the Jedi Corps. So he was put in the agricultural corps, and they basically made him go be a force-sensitive farmer on this planet. And Qui-Gon's like, what are the odds that we would both kind of end up here? And Yoda had sort of suggested
made a couple things happen,
and also kind of pointed to, like, hey, perhaps this is the direction that the Force is taking all of us in. And so then ultimately, he decided to pick up Obi-Wan as a Padawan at the age of 13. And then so from 13 to 25, when we first meet him in the Phantom Menace, they're having all these different adventures together that are detailed in these Jedi Apprentice books and in Star Wars Tales, the comic book.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then we get the Phantom Menace.
And then we meet Newt Gunray and
Droidicas.
Yep. And we just jump right into
Naboo,
the politics and the action right there.
Yeah. Well, that, my friends, is the story of Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yep.
How was that? I'm going to go back. I'm just switching accents every episode on you.
That's fine. You're many bro hosts in one. You're like a Swiss Army knife of bro hosts.
I like that thought. Yeah. I appreciate that background. Actually, I didn't know some of that stuff, so that was actually really, really helpful. Because I guess I just didn't get too much into some of the non-canon stories.
I think it's
like I've told on this podcast before, I'm not much of a reader.
Yeah, and that's okay. But I think they did a good job of sort of, making all that make sense. Like, it sort of lines up. Like, the heartbreak of, like, can you imagine Qui-Gon losing his second Padawan to the dark side?
That's awful. Yeah. I don't even want to fathom that.
It must be crushing. Like, of course he said, I just can never do this again.
Yeah.
And then who comes along but the Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Mm-hmm.
And he totally rejects him at first. And just part of it is his heart is broken and he's overly sensitive. He's overly worried of like, gosh, I didn't see it in Xanatos. I think I see something in Obi-Wan that I don't think is good. But at the end of the day...
But that's not... He's just not trusting himself.
He's not trusting his own judgment.
That's his own... A bit of his own pride there, but it's a bit of his own demons hunting. In a way, Obi-Wan actually helps him to overcome his own demons, is what that's saying.
And you know what I love from the High Republic era that I think applies here is the constant usage of the idea of the Song of the Force.
Oh yeah, people love that with Avar Kriss. Yeah,
I love it, and so I think like a Jedi Master like Qui-Gon maybe doesn't feel like they can hear the song anymore, or maybe it's like, well, what song is it? I thought it was this song, and it's not, and he feels like he's out of tune, he's out of sync, and he's not trusting his judgment and things like that. And so him and Obi-Wan come together at, I think, a very sensitive time for him. Whether or not that's canon, feels like it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm just thinking too much on the Song of the Force. The other thing I love that Charles Soule did in that, which I think you're listening to the book right now, right? The Light of the Jedi, right?
I'm reading it. I actually got the paperback.
Reading. Oh, you're actually flipping pages and licking your fingers just to get to the next page and stuff like that.
You know what I heard the other day?
What was that?
If you spend more than $1 on a bookmark, you should have just used $1 as a bookmark.
Genius. Except dollars are dirty, so maybe not.
Maybe not.
Maybe you just want a clean piece of paper, then spend that $1. But there's some truth to that.
Yeah.
I like that idea. But maybe it sparkles. You don't know.
It could. Yeah, that's fair.
Bookmarks can be special. Chidi has a very special bookmark that he rubs all the time. And there's my Good Place reference.
There it is. You got it in.
I haven't done it in a while.
I have one with all different types of North American ducks on it, and it's got a tassel.
Only you would.
I don't know where that came from, but I've had it for like 100 years.
Barnes and Noble, there's this rack of all these bookmarks, and there's like, one duck bookmark missing. The rest are just collecting dust.
Yep.
I'm just kidding, man.
Where were we? This is a Star Wars podcast.
Yes, we were talking about stuff. But we were talking about you reading that book, and something that I really like that Charles Soule did. Not sure where you are in it. You'll eventually get to this if you haven't. Is during the Crisis on Hetzal. Mm-hmm. They have a moment where they kind of talk about all the different ways that the Jedi see the Force. Mm-hmm. Avar sees it as a song. I think it was Elzar Mann who sees it as like a deep ocean. Was it Buryaga who sees it as like the forest on Kashyyyk and the tall trees and stuff like that.
Man.
So like
I love that.
There's like these great analogies that are very peaceful and nature oriented in most cases that they dive into, which are really cool. So anyway, we're talking about Qui-Gon. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I wanted to do before we moved on from it was I talked about like impact on characters that Qui-Gon had. And we've established Obi-Wan enough. We talked about Anakin. I want to talk about two more real quick, and that is Yoda. Let's start with Yoda. Think about this. This is a man who is over 900 years old. He's seen it all. He's done it all. Like, there can't be a planet in the galaxy he hasn't seen, right? Like, he's literally done so much and learned so much about the Force. He knows it all, and like everybody knows that. Everybody on the council is like, this is the guy. Mm-hmm. Like, I have nothing. I'm nothing compared to him, right? And Qui-Gon proves that he still has something to learn. Think about that. I think when Qui-Gon rejected being on the council, that causes Yoda to reflect on whether or not the Jedi have lost their way. If he's right. And I think that's when Yoda starts to really open his eyes and see what Qui-Gon sees. And I believe he eventually sees it. Like, we know that at near the end of the Clone Wars, like, Yoda's starting to see the Shroud of the Dark Side that's that's over them all. And he's realizing that Qui-Gon was right after all that time. So that wasn't it, though. There's also the fact, like, I was watching the episode of Clone Wars, which is great, called Voices, right before this one in season 6, where Qui-Gon basically comes back to him as a voice and starts teaching him like he doesn't know everything yet. And by the end of that episode, Qui-Gon calls him a friend and says he's got something to teach him. So this guy who didn't live a tenth the life of Yoda comes back to teach him one last thing: how to survive beyond life, how to become one with the Force, the living Force specifically, and eventually come back and less Jedi and things like that, and teach it to Obi-Wan and stuff. So I just think like how much of an impact he ended up having on Yoda. I'll pause and see if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, I think so. I'm reminded of a line I heard years ago, which I really liked, and it was between a much older mentor and a younger, I think, late high school, early college student. And he said, I won't treat you like you're too young if you don't treat me like I'm too old. And I think, so you can kind of get caught up in that of like, how could you have any experience compared to what I have lived through and seen? And something that I think Qui-Gon does through his actions sort of shakes Yoda out of that.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't blame Yoda one bit if he sort of jumps to conclusions based on his 900 years of experience. And he sort of snaps him out of that as kind of a purist who rejects all the trappings of being part of the council and so on. So I think that's a really good point that I've not considered before, how impressive it is that this guy who lives a fraction of the lifespan of Yoda can wake him up to something and surprise him and teach him something new and all that great stuff. So I dig that.
And again, he's the glue. He's what holds it all together in the end. Like, how does anybody else become a Force ghost if it weren't for Qui-Gon?
Yeah.
One other character, and this might be a little.
By the way, do we ever learn precisely how it is that he learns how to be a Force ghost?
Voices. Go watch the episode Voices.
Okay.
Yeah, we do. He explains it. And I'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
I'll get back to that. But I want to talk about the other character that he has an impact on, and that's Jar Binks.
Sure.
Now, first of all, he saves his life.
Who is amazing in the new Batman movie.
He's in every movie that's in theaters
spoiler.
right now.
If you haven't watched the new Batman Features Jar Jar movie, you might want to pause it here.
In fact, that's the name it got afterwards, because that was the true name of the movie. They just couldn't spoil that.
They just didn't want to give it away.
They didn't.
Yeah. For
good reasons, obvious reasons. That would have just attracted too big of a crowd.
Yes.
He shows up in the DeLorean next to Christopher Lloyd, and it's just all over. Christopher Lloyd comes back to the future with Jar Jar in the Batman movie.
I gotta go. I'm gonna leave right now.
This is where I take my bow. Anyway.
This is where I take an Advil.
You're like, it's getting past my bedtime. No, okay. Jar Jar.
Yes.
He has an impact. First of all, he saves his life once, and then he saves him again right away. Right? So yeah, he's got a life debt to him. He's done some good things to keep him alive. But he's done more than that if you think about it. Like he actually believes in them. I mean, we know that Obi-Wan doesn't have any respect for him. He's like, why do I feel like we picked up another useless life form? And the other useless life form he's referring to is Jar Jar. By the way, and Anakin was the other one. Like, he sees something in him. He's a little annoyed by him sometimes, like when he's, picking fruit off the table with his tongue. Like, he gets a little bit annoyed about this guy. But I got to think about it. Jar Jar wouldn't have been reaccepted into the Gungans if it weren't for Qui-Gon. And if it weren't for the chances that he gave him and making him go on this adventure with him and bringing everyone back together. Jar Jar gets the credit for that because he deserves that credit, and it's all because of Qui-Gon. He wouldn't have become a politician And just to stoke the flames of all of those people out there who believe in this theory, he wouldn't have become a Dark Lord of the Sith if it weren't for Qui-Gon. Okay, that's true.
You had to put that in there.
I had to put that in there. But the other things were true. The other
Yes.
two. So, I don't know. I just think it was just Qui-Gon and just every character that he came across in one film and how he's able to... We didn't even talk about Padme. The same thing there.
Yeah.
So, he serves others.
That and it's such a good contrast between the ways that Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon treat Jar Jar and react to Jar Jar.
Right.
And it just goes to show just kind of how I read this thing years ago. A guy wrote a book about Jane Austen, the writer.
Yeah.
And how much he totally wrote her off, and then years later went back and wrote and read her books. And ended up writing a book about how much he learned about himself by the way he reacted to Jane Austen books when he was younger, and then when he went and read them when he was older. And it's almost like Qui-Gon skips to the older, wiser part and has the presence of mind to kind of accept Jar Jar as he is and help him along.
Yeah.
Whereas Obi-Wan is annoyed from like
Day one.
the very beginning. He's kind of had it with him.
He's like, who is this bumbling weirdo?
and I bet if like later on Obi-Wan, who was on Tatooine for a decade and watching over Luke Skywalker, ran into Jar Jar for the first time, that version of him, I bet he would have treated him differently.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Could be. I don't know.
He's had an impact on Jar Jar.
Big time.
Just leave. You asked about Force Ghost. Do you want to go there next?
Sure.
Maybe end on... Well, then I've got some questions for you. But
Okay.
I'll just... So Force Ghost. Like I said, I think this is the final best moment of Qui-Gon's life. It is the fact that he learned how to become one with the living Force and to preserve his consciousness through the Force. But first thing I'll say on it is the timing of it is really interesting. And this is what we get out of the Clone Wars. It is at the very end of Season 6, nearing the end of the Clone Wars, when we get this clip of Yoda having these premonitions, this voice that's coming to him while he's meditating, and it's Qui-Gon's voice, telling him that he's survived through the Force. And it was funny because it was right after they all learned on the council that Dooku was somehow behind the killing of Master Sidious and the creation of the clone army. So obviously that means that the dark side must be behind it and behind the whole war. Like the side that they're fighting on, like they realize like they've been pawns in the hands of the dark side. The Jedi Council knew that they were surrounded by the dark side, and suddenly at that moment is when Qui-Gon says, "This is when I'm going to make myself known to Yoda." At the end of the war, when everything's about to just fall to pieces, before it does, I need to get to Yoda, teach him what I know, let him learn how to become the Force so that he can... Because if he doesn't do that, by the way, he doesn't tell Obi-Wan at the end of Revenge of the Sith to that he's got a little bit of extra training for him, right? So that is very critical that it happens then. But again, the timing of it is just really interesting if you think about like how important... If you didn't do that, then war is over, Empire rules on forever, end of story. Might as well just move on.
Written and directed by George Lucas.
There you go. So yeah, but and then in that episode, Yoda eventually goes to Dagobah, and is able to learn from Qui-Gon and goes into the same cave that Luke did, and Qui-Gon's giving him this whole explanation on like how he's being able to preserve his consciousness, and basically explains like. So the thought was that the Jedi would become one with the cosmic Force, but he was able to find a way to join with the living Force specifically, which is something that wasn't believed to be possible, but he figured it out. And then the next episodes after that is where Yoda figures it out. So, again, this is one of the things that I love about Clone Wars, is it's like giving us all these things, but if it weren't for all of this experience, like we wouldn't have the rest of Star Wars. It's really critical that Force Ghosts become what they are. Think about it, like Luke wouldn't have been able to be trained as a Jedi. Rey wouldn't have been able to be confronted by Luke as a Force Ghost later on. On Octu, she would just be stuck there and the First Order would have won, and end of story. Like, that's how critical it is that Qui-Gon learns to become part of the living force.
And that's the ultimate, because Qui-Gon's character to me is like partly defined by the fact that it's like the saying people say, you're not just raising your kids, you're raising your grandkids too, because the things you teach your kids are going to be passed on and so on. And it's like the ultimate version of kind of having extraordinary impact through others.
Yeah.
And enabling others. And it's almost like Qui-Gon is here to just sort of elevate the abilities and the talents and uniquely highlight what everybody's great at and so on. And that's what brings the different characters to life at the right points in the different point of the story, in different points of the story. It's all of kind of like Qui-Gon's coaching, mentoring, teaching, and guiding. And so like that's the ultimate thing, is to help them sort of transcend death so that they're available to help the living kind of move this saga forward. Yeah, exactly. And hopefully Rey learns it so that she can continue it. And like, this is just something that happens from this point forward. Yep. Another mystery that we've learned. And then think of all the other mysteries of the Force that they haven't learned. If Yoda after 900 years is still able to learn something. Yeah. We're just staring at each other now like, that was good. I'm full. That was It's a great way to put it. Yeah,
a lot to feast on.
That was a meal right there.
Any other thoughts? I'm like getting fresh out of thoughts on Qui-Gon. He's amazing. I love him.
Yeah, totally amazing. And I think this is a character who I've come back to, and we've talked about this like different points in my life. So when you're a kid and you see him on TV or on the big screen, I went back and I looked, and I think he was 47. 47.
Liam Neeson was?
What's that?
Liam Neeson was 47?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He's 70 this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I didn't think he was that old.
Me neither.
But he did seem very fatherly, and I think I kind of looked at him like the way that I looked at most adults that age, or most 47-year-olds when I was that age. And like just now, like I'm going back and I'm realizing, wow, at different points of my life, I have come to respect and appreciate his character more and more and more, and it probably will continue to do so as the story kind of expands and ripples out. Like, you'll be able to see Qui-Gon's fingerprints on all the amazing things that happen in Star Wars going forward.
I totally agree. You just reminded me of one other thing that maybe explains why I love him so much. I mean, when we see him, and when we see the moment where Darth Maul, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon are all fighting, and eventually gets split up, and then those ray shields come down and they're blocked.
So cool,
really cool. All that fight sequence. What does Qui-Gon do when there's a pause in the battle?
He sort of just kneels down
and meditates,
and calmly, very calmly, centers himself and meditates.
And then as soon as the action picks back up again, he's up and he's back at it. Right? That is enough right there to tell you what kind of person he is.
Mm-hmm.
He's focused. He's got his mind in the right place. Like, this fight is just a fight, and it's an important one, and it's important that they eventually win it and get out on the right side of it. At least, Obi-Wan does. It still feels like salt in the wound.
Yeah.
But the fact that he chooses that moment to meditate just tells you everything you know. Like, that's where his mind is. He cares more about the living force. He cares more about what you can learn through the force through meditation and through practice of serving others than doing cool flips and fighting and stuff like that.
But yeah, and you contrast that with Maul, who's like pacing, he's like snarling a little bit, and he's kind of giving into like his emotions of anticipation, and he's angry, and he is, he's ready to be violent, and it's just like such a nice sort of like counterpoint of like Qui-Gon saying, I'm not going to be any of those things, and I'm just going to sort of bring my energy down, and I'm going to park it on the floor right here, and I'll be ready once the shield comes up.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an awesome visual.
Yeah, let's leave it there. Does that sound good?
That sounds good.
Okay. What are we going to talk about next time?
We are going to go back to the Book of Boba Fett, and we're going to talk about some life lessons or some wisdom that we can take away from the series. So we already went. We covered the show. We reacted to it, but we were talking about how there's some deep stuff there.
Yeah.
That we think we can kind of excavate, dig up, and really...
Excavate.
Excavate.
Ooh, like
SAT word. And really kind of like learn something from. And we've done these kind of life lesson episodes in the past, and they're always a lot of fun.
They are. And I think it's important to look at some of them in this one just because they're fresh. And they were different than some of the life lessons that we typically get. And that's a sign of good storytelling, modern storytelling, that's able to take something and not just rehash the same... I mean... We talk about like one of the lessons of Star Wars in general. The overarching theme is always hope, and that will never change, should never change. Is the thread that runs throughout Star Wars, but it's sprinkling in little lessons along the way that I think are really important. So, we're gonna revisit that because it's still on the top of our mind, and we don't want to lose that while it's fresh. And then we'll see what Star Wars has given us throughout the next few months, because we're going to be getting some Obi-Wan. We're going to eventually get Andor.
The Lego game is coming out in
the
like
Lego
3
game.
weeks.
We'll have a whole thing on that. We got some High Republic topics to talk about at some point. And how did I forget? Bad Batch will be coming at some point. We still don't know when. It's coming soon. So we have so much content coming this year that we'll be able to talk about. It'll be nice to just kind of sprinkle in some fun episodes like Qui-Gon tonight, and like the lessons from Book of Boba Fett, reflecting back on it now. So should be a fun topic.
Indeed. And on that note, so we just want to say thank you to everybody who stuck around and listened, and people who are commenting on the YouTube videos and the BROAXIUM YouTube channel, where you can find our episodes, and the quick shots that we do where we preview comics that are just about to come out. Anybody who sent us emails, publicly shamed, hope you're doing great.
Heather, thank you for the chocolates again. I'm still eating them.
Yes, thank you, Heather. At folks who tweet us at Starburst Podcast on Twitter. Thanks everybody for engaging with us.
Kevin Scott for liking our tweets.
Yes, thank you for that. So we always appreciate that. Know that it just sort of makes our day whenever you're reaching out to us and checking in and letting us know how you feel about whatever we're talking about. And if you ever think, I'd love for you guys specifically to talk about this topic, like, don't hesitate. Let us know. We'd love to hear suggestions about what you want to hear about. So thank you for sticking around. Thank you for leaving reviews and comments and all that great stuff. It means a lot to us. And we look forward to talking to you next time. But until then, I think there's one more thing for us to say.
There's one more thing I want to say before I say that one more thing.
2 more things.
So I heard that my Uncle Ryan Skywalker, I'm just having fun with this now, that he might have listened to us. So, hey, Uncle Ryan, if you did listen, thank you. And let me know what you thought.
1 star.
What's that?
1 star. Love Uncle Ryan.
He'll be like, all right, nephew, let me tell you what I really think. And I'll be like, please be nice. On that note, though.
Well, thank you, Uncle Ryan, for listening. We appreciate it very, very much.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, if you did. And
unless you didn't like it, in which case, tweet at Chris Ryan, who is our bro host and also fields all of our complaints.
Again, keep giving them reasons to just hate humans and humanity.
And Chris, this was Ben's idea. This whole thing was Ben's idea.
Oh, that's my favorite thing right now. And it's like, why me? When did this happen? Anyway, for everybody listening, that's like, what? For whatever reason, I'm the scapegoat to every one of the mistakes that anyone makes, whether it's Jan or the rest of the world. It's my fault.
So to give a tangible example, so like I mentioned, we do these awesome quick shot shows where we do a preview of the Star Wars comic books that are coming out that week, and so we look at the comic and then we record some audio to kind of go with some visuals that Chris pulls from the comic. He puts some music in. They're really, really cool. If you haven't seen them, go to the BROAXIUM YouTube channel. They're really cool. I made 2 mistakes in the process of recording my talk track. 2 errors that just, Chris had to go and cut out. And Ben got blamed for it.
I'm not even anywhere close to the vicinity you're in recording these. I got the blame.
Ben didn't read the comic. He did not record the talk track. He had nothing to do with the mistakes that I made. which I don't own up to. I think that they're Ben's fault.
You're in on this now?
No, that's just full on bullying if I pile on. No, it's an inside joke. I made the mistakes. I own it. But Chris immediately blamed Ben.
Yeah.
And said that. I blame Ben.
He does. He just like, it's Ben's fault. I just know it is. Like, whatever went wrong, it's Ben's fault. So, you know what? On that note, I'm just going to abruptly go, it's a wrap!
That one was a little bit grumpy.
That was a grumpy Akbar right there.